ladies and gentlemen, now hosting the RizzoCast, put your hands together for Steven Risotto!
What's going on, everybody, and welcome. My name is Steven Risotto. I cover the San Francisco Giants for SF Bay, and I'm the host of RizzoCast, a podcast that features current and former big league players, coaches, fans, media, and others who are regarded as some of the brightest minds around the game of baseball. Today's guest is Alex Dickerson. Yes, an MLB outfielder who has played in parts of 6 seasons at the big league level with the San Diego Padres, San Francisco Giants, and the Atlanta Braves. Now at 33 years old, Dickerson says he feels better than ever. He's currently playing in the Independent League for the Long Island Ducks in the Atlantic League, and recently won the team's Player of the Month honor of June. We talk about the experience in independent baseball, kind of reinventing himself as a hitter, his struggles with health throughout his career, getting denied during Players Weekend. That's a fun story. Cheesestakes, the magical 2021 season, platoons, so much more coming up next. This is episode number 146. Let's get started. Alrighty, and we are back with Alex Dickerson, and Alex is kind enough to join the show. Alex, thanks for coming on. Welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show, and you are here because we could not get Robert Stock. No, I'm just kidding. For those who don't know, I just want to plug this real quick. We are recording this on the morning of the 19th, but last night, Robert Stock for the Long Island Ducks, and I guess for those that don't know, Alex Dickerson is now a Long Island Duck in the Independent League, in the Atlantic League. So your teammate and former big leaguer Robert Stock, he just threw a no-hitter last night. So how cool was that to kind of be a part of that?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And I've known Robert for a long time now. Saw him make it to the big leagues with us with the Padres, I think in either I think it was 2018. And so his career is a wild one and just a crazy thing to really look up over just how he's done it. He's a catcher, he's a pitcher, he's done independent ball 3 times. I think he said he's played for over 16 different teams, some affiliated, some not. And yesterday, those that don't know, we had about a 7-hour bus ride to get to that game. So we're up at 7 a.m. and starting pitchers normally, especially an older one's not used to doing that. So it's really impressive that he kind of showed up and threw a no-hitter. But I mean, he's a big league quality pitcher, can still definitely throw in the major league. So this is a level below him, but it's still impressive nonetheless. We didn't really have much work out there in the outfield.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to mention that you mentioned the long bus ride, and I want to stick with the conversation about playing independent baseball and playing for the Long Island Ducks. I know you briefly played in the Mexican League earlier this year too. Now you're in the Atlantic League. How did this opportunity kind of come up for you to join this club? Because there's a lot of former Padres too. I saw Kevin Quackenbush is on the roster too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, our team is one of the best lineups, best rosters I've actually ever been on. We may all be on the back end of our careers, but I think we're all here kind of for the same reason. We still believe physically we're able to do it, and we're just kind of looking for an opportunity back to compete again. The way that affiliated baseball's gone over probably the past 6-7 years is it's slowly filtered out older players faster than they had in the past, and they can't think with minor league union rules. There's also a cap on how many players you can have in your entire minor league system. So I think things are going to change over time. You're going to see more players that you think like, wow, he really wasn't that far removed from having a really good season in the majors. He's in Mexico now, or he's over here. You're going to start seeing that quite a bit more, and I think it already has been going that way. So in my case personally, I had a down year the last 2 years. Mechanically, I just kind of lost my swing after I'd gotten my body loose to try to stay healthy. The good thing is that I actually am healthy. The bad news was that it was 2 years really of fighting to try to find those mechanics again. You got to kind of rebuild from square one when you lose it. I think you see that with players all the time. Cody Bellinger is probably biggest example in recent years where goes from MVP to wow, what's going on with him for multiple seasons before all of a sudden it just kind of he keeps fighting, he clicks, and now it looks like he's kind of back on the upswing again. And I think I'm still currently playing because physically I feel as good as I ever did in my 20s. I missed almost 3 full seasons in my 20s, and you might look at that as a negative, but I always look at it as I didn't get wear and tear from those because I blew out immediately in spring training 3 different times, and I missed like the full seasons. So I do feel pretty good. But yeah, you're here in the independent league grinding it out again. You're doing the bus rides. You're taking the offer on the day that you're sitting on the bus for 7 hours. That's part of the gig. But it's been fun. We got a good group. We got a good group of guys that are keeping. We keep each other motivated, and we're just kind of trying to have fun with it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the I guess motivation to continue playing independent ball. I mean, are because a lot of people do it because they like playing. A lot of people do it because they want to get back. Maybe it's a blend of both. Are you aiming for another shot at the big leagues, or are you more focused on playing because you still love the game? Because I mean, it sounds like a slam dunk answer that you might have, but I guess it could be answered in a few different ways. So, what's the kind of motivation with continuing
It
to
could
play?
be.
I guess.
It could be just trying to ride it out, but in my case, I wholeheartedly believe I'm every bit as good as I was back, dating back to 2020. Now my defense has actually been better. My swing, it actually took me having to see another tier down of pitching to realize just all the things that I've been screwing up over the years. In recent years, the velocity in AAA has actually ticked back up. And you lose sight of some very basic fundamentals. And as a big leaguer, you get better at hiding some of the mistakes you're making, and it's not as obvious the older you get. I think you watch Buster Posey's probably the best example, actually, where when I got there in 2019, he was going through some things. It was Buster. He's the captain. He's still a great catcher, and his swing just wasn't there. Everybody just the number one thing they always point to: age. Always getting older, is always decline. We got all these algorithms that say everything. They don't really have an algorithm for fixing guys. Which with him, I was looking at it the whole time. I'm like, he's not using his legs. He's not able to stay on the ball because of this, that, and the other. And it seemed very fixable. And then his last year, he proved that. I mean, it was probably one of the best years of his entire career before he hung him up. And actually, the Giants were probably the best example of why I'm still going, because we had 3 or 4 guys that had some of the best years of their careers at age 33, 34, and we're still playing to this day. So yeah, you would like it not to be here. You'd like it not to end up getting to this point, but you just take whoever gives you a jersey on your back, and you're looking for another opportunity to get back. Because I do believe walking back into AAA this time around, I think I would put up similar numbers to when I was younger and can move on from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's cool that you're kind of finding your swing there. And obviously there's very notable differences. You mentioned the bus rides of playing in the big leagues and playing in independent ball. But I guess from an outsider looking in, what would people not know about the independent leagues? Like what are the fans like, the ballpark, I guess what are some of the vibes of playing at that level?
It's similar to the low minors in a lot of ways. Talent wise, it's a roller coaster. I've seen some players that you're like, man, this guy never got drafted. I can't believe that. Like just lost in the weeds somewhere. I've seen that from like 3 or 4 guys this year on the position player side. And then the pitching side, there's just this really wide range. You got some really old guys that have no velocity and they can kind of just locate. You got guys that are coming out of college that overlooked. You got some dudes that threw really hard and they just can't throw a strike. So like that's what's actually helped my swing, is seeing the variety and being forced to adjust to a huge range of pitches, including like stuff that you feel like you haven't seen since college, where guys are just slowing up and you're like, well, I should be hitting this. This is like very obvious, like bad mechanics, bad stuff, but I'm getting out. And then you start to realize like, you know what? I'm not too good to kind of widen my stance out and be short and try to hit it the other way. You had to, like, that's what I did to get out of here the first time on the way up. And so you see that from the player standpoint, from the stadiums and everything. It's really not all, like, our crowds have been every bit better than I had in Gwinnett last year. Almost every day in Long Island, especially, it's a really good atmosphere. They treat you, it's pretty much the minor leagues again. You're on the bus, you got roommates on the road, you got all those things, and you're kind of wearing that, and you're making zero money again. And that's just part of the gig, and that's how we earned our stripes the first time around. And sometimes you got to do that part all over again. And it's a little different when you're older with a family and mouths to feed and all that. But in my situation, I did pretty well before getting to this point. So we're kind of grinding through it, and it is good baseball overall. It's been a lot of fun.
And one of the things I noticed, one of the guys on your team you were traded for.
He just showed up the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, Franklin. I'm gonna screw up his name. Franklin Van Gerp.
Mm-hmm.
The Farhan Zaidi had made a deal trading him for you back in the day, back in 2019. So, like, was that ever talked about when you saw when you saw him? Because that seems like a pretty interesting anecdote.
Yeah, so he just showed up. I haven't even had a chance to talk to him because all we've had is just a bus ride. But yeah, I'm sure that'll come up at some
And a
point.
no
Yeah,
hitter.
I was traded for him directly back in 2019. So yeah, that was really funny to see him on the roster yesterday. I'm like, that name sounds familiar. Oh, I was traded for that guy.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And your manager too, Wally Backman. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube videos of him going absolutely nuts managing a few different independent league teams. I mean, is he anything like that? Like, behind closed doors? Is he enjoyable to play for? Tell me a little bit about Wally Backman because he was part of
Yes,
those
he's
Mets teams.
So we used that YouTube video, when I was in AAA the first time in 2015 in El Paso. We listened to that video before every single game the entire year. That was just part of our routine, and it was really funny back then. He was still managing in the league at the time for Las Vegas, and you always heard the stories about him. And yes, he's still got every bit of that much fire. That's Wally Backman. That's who he is. He's going to die in this game. And yeah, he's still it's an older player. It's been really nice having somebody like that that's got that old school, like, just does everything on pure emotion. Like, it's something that's kind of gotten filtered out of the game in these days, and sometimes for good reason. But when you need that extra motivation when you're older, you're not being paid, like, Wally's there to kind of like get you going and have your back. He's had a couple explosions too, which has been it's just funny looking at it now. But yeah, he's still as passionate as ever, and he's kind of a legend, especially as a manager. Not even going back to like his playing days, which were some wild times in the '80s.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And that could be a whole different podcast for a different day. Let's get into your career a little bit professionally. I mean, you're from Poway, down there in San Diego, in that area, and you're the second player. I want you to know this. You're the second player in the history of the podcast to be from Poway High School. So
Oh, really?
Xavier Scruggs, I had him on a while back. Have you had any kind of run-in with Xavier? I know he's with ESPN right now. But I mean, do those alumni, because there's a bunch of them, it's a big baseball school, do those alumni ever come together at times?
Yeah. I've seen X over the years. It's been a little bit now. He got the TV gig, and he's big time now. He's one of their best guys for all that. And X is a great dude. He was a senior my freshman year. And this is kind of the cool thing about Poway. And if you really look at the wall of all the big leaguers we had during that period, there was always motivation. There was always somebody about 2 or 3 grades above you that was doing stuff that you're like, wow, if I could do that someday, I'd be so happy. And then you're kind of following them. He makes it to the big leagues, gets a little bit of a cup of coffee. I think he went to Korea for a couple years. Just an outstanding guy. He used to hit balls at our high school that were like over we had the fence, trees, the football stands, and then the lights. And he hit it over the lights one of the days, I remember. And so, like, legendary stuff like that. You had him, Thomas Neal, and you had the group with kind of me. Austin Wins right behind me also played for the Giants. Then after that was Connor Joe, also played for the Giants. You had Bochy also played. The Giants really liked Poway for whatever reason, as they should. We had really good players, and I think the coolest part about what Poway had is we didn't have any of the superstar like athletes, like the can't miss it 5-tool, like he's going to go first round right out of the gate. We had a lot of like guys that were moderately athletic and just were coached up really well and just played really good baseball, and that's what got a lot of us out of there. And I mean, it's been one heck of a program over the years.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. The names there, it's a super rich list. When the Pirates picked you in the third round in 2011, and we just had a draft just now over the All-Star game weekend. And I guess it kind of would bring you back a little bit seeing some of the names selected. And granted, the third round might have not been televised, but do you remember at all where you were when you got that call that Pittsburgh had drafted you?
Yeah, I was at home in my room. I had slipped because I mean, I was a guy that probably my whole college career, most people thought I would go in the first round. My junior year, they brought in the BB core bats, and the first year of that, looking back at it, was a disaster. It's not even like a subjective thing. Like legitimately, they didn't know what the qualifications were going to be, and some of the companies went way too far as that first year to try to qualify. I didn't hit a home run in batting practice almost the entire season, where I used to just do it at will, and then after I'd signed, I did it at will. And so I'm sitting there like, well, that wasn't cool. they So I had slipped out of the first round. I was pretty disappointed in that at the time. And I think Pittsburgh kind of said they might take me with the first pick of the second round. And then overnight, they ended up going for Josh Bell, who wasn't supposed to be signable, and he barely was. I think he ended up making him cough up $5 million. Boris did his work there with him and Garrett. And then they ended up taking me the first pick of the third round. And then like after that happens, you finally get that weight off your shoulder. You're like, all right, drafted now. Where do I got to go? When do I got to do it? It's definitely one of those things that's a monumental point in your career. And as I look back at it, me sliding might have been a good thing for me, because I was the kind of guy I needed a little extra motivation to try to keep moving. If you get $1 million at 21, you're sitting there thinking like, oh, I'm pretty set. And then my age now, you realize how little that actually goes. For most people, I think that ends up lasting, if they're smart, 7-8 years of their career, because you go into making nothing. And a lot of people aren't too smart at that young, and when they're young, especially when you don't factor in tax. So yeah, I think looking back at that, it's one of those big moments that wasn't really like a super happy one for me, but it's definitely the thing that started my career.
Yeah, without a doubt. And when you were traded to San Diego, and I asked JT Snow something similar about this, because he was, an Orange County guy, and he was traded, from the Yankees to the Angels. And, obviously getting traded to San Diego for you, it's a place close to home. Was that a dream kind of playing for your hometown team, or was it kind of a burden? Because, JT Snow was saying that, every night he had to go to dinner with someone. Every night he had to leave 15 tickets out for a coach or a former player or a high school teammate. Was it a dream playing for the hometown team, or did it kind of have like the burden feel to it?
It was definitely when I got traded, I was in that same room, just happened to be there in the off season, and it was like super exciting. All of a sudden, I can get in my car, and instead of taking a right to go to my high school, I go straight and go to the interstate, and then I can go down and play baseball for the Padres. And it was a dream getting called up with them, playing there. It was really cool. It does have its downsides like no other, just like you're talking about. There's a lot of people that come out of the woodwork, want tickets, don't understand that we got to pay for them. Everybody with me for the most part though was really cool, really supportive, and it was always nice to have that going for you in any given crowd, because especially back in those days, we didn't win that many games, so it felt like you were playing some road games at home, and it was nice to have like family and friends that were always still had your back. And yeah, it was definitely a great time. I was really proud of those times. And but yeah, they did come with some sort of some burdens that could get really exhausting. I didn't really have to deal with that as much in San Francisco.
Yeah, if they didn't come see you in the minor leagues, then it's not even worth, saving them a ticket for the big leagues. Like
Yeah,
that's where
I
I would
mean,
draw
but
the line.
in their defense, it's not many of them are rolling through El Paso or San Antonio or out
Very
to the
true.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned some of the injuries that you had, um and you mentioned that you feel good now. But do you feel 100%? Like, are the injuries that you had, and I know you've had a few back injuries, you've had, the ankle, you've had the arm, you've had the hamstring. Like, do you ever consider yourself to be at like 100%? Will that ever happen like again, or is that something that you just kind of have to deal with?
I mean, as far as those injuries, I know more about my body now than I ever did when I was going through them. So what I considered 100% before them probably wasn't even close as far as like my mobility and
Hmm.
stuff. So no, nobody ever considers themselves 100%. Like you could ask 100% of players in the major leagues right now, are you at 100%? Not one of them's going to say that. This game will beat you up, especially by the time you get to the halfway point. Um, but yeah, I'm fully rehabbed from it, from all of those, and it took a couple years for some of them, and then you had to learn. I had to learn what was important to strengthen, what was important to stay loose, and all that. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be like a 100%, and I'm older now. There's some things you feel like you can't do as well, but I don't know. Overall, I was really banged up. I mean, when I was 27, I could barely walk with that first back injury. And nowadays, like the thought when I was 27 to say like, oh, 6 years from now, you're going to ride a bus for 7 hours at 7 a.m. at age 33, and you're still going to have to play a game that night. Like I would have told you, probably crazy. There's no way I'd be able to do that, but I actually managed to do it. And it takes a little while to get loose, but I really don't think twice about it. Not afraid of being injured, which I was there for a couple of years. That first year back in 2019, I mean, I had this regimen that was just an hour and a half long every day, right as I showed up, of just getting everything loose, everything strengthened. I was afraid every single swing could be the one that set me back because I hadn't been on the field for 2 consecutive full seasons. And it doesn't help when you have like doctors, trainers, GMs, like they're all saying they kind of don't think you're going to do it either. But deep in the back of my mind, I knew I could. I just had to be really religious with how I got ready and how I prepared every day. And like I really do kind of. I am proud of the fact that I was able to do that. A lot of guys, it's not easy. It's exhausting just trying to stay healthy. Um, but I got through that. Now I don't really think twice about it. So yeah, 100% is probably not realistic ever. But honestly, I like I said earlier, I feel better than I did at 27, 28 years old at 33. So that's kind of why I'm still doing this.
Hmm. Yeah, and kind of side note here, you're known for your kind of dry sense of humor, and grandpa's one of your nicknames relating back to when you're kind of limping around as a teenager. But you have another nickname. Obviously, in baseball we like to make things very easy and shorten names, and that would make your nickname Dick. But you have a story to tell about trying to use that in Players Weekend, right? And they wouldn't allow you to use it, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to use it. I think I turned it in with the Padres one year, but I wasn't playing, so it never ended up being an issue. And I want to say they might have said no then. And then in 19, uh, the fans were chanting it throughout all the stadium and stuff, so they really wanted to see it on the jersey. So I turned it in again, and they said no. And then somebody informed me that like Richard Blyer has it on his jersey. I'm like, well, that's BS. How the hell is he allowed to and I'm not? So we got in this kind of tussle with I think Brad Grimm's our equipment guy. He just kept emailing, asking Joe Torre if we could do it, and then they kind of ran out the clock, and then eventually they just put Grandpa on there again. And yeah, I'm still pissed about it. I still think it's a double standard, and it was absolutely stupid. But it was funny. I actually played with Richard Blyer on Team Israel this year, and we talked about that earlier, and kind of funny hearing both sides of it. We were both laughing about it because I think it might have gone into the media as we were angry. And yeah, I was like frustrated, but it was still just funny to me. Like I didn't honestly care.
Yeah, out of all the things that you emailed Joe Torre about, like he's probably getting like, hundreds of emails a day, and that one just pops up in his inbox. I want to know what his reaction was. So that's pretty amazing. And I also know that,
Yeah.
you're a pretty big, video game guy too, right? So what do you usually play?
Hmm. Um, Honestly, in recent years, I have kids now. I haven't gotten to as much, but I end up playing with my kids. So I'm playing a lot of the stuff I did when I was a kid. I'm playing Crash Bandicoot, Zelda, Spyro, those kind of things. And I'm having a lot of fun with that and kind of showing my oldest kind of the ropes of it and seeing his understanding of it, kind of piecing things together. He's even trying to solve some of the puzzles in there. And yeah, so that's it's been a lot of those like N64 PlayStation ones recently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember you saying something about, you liking the video game, so I had to sneak that in here. Back to
Oh
baseball
yeah.
real quick before we wrap up. We'll do some Giant stuff. You had kind of the unique opportunity to play for both Bruce Bochy and Gabe Kapler, and they're two very different baseball men. But do they have any similarities at all, or is it just kind of all different with that transition from Bochy to Kapler?
I'd say the similarity is they're both players managers in different ways. Yeah, Cap, he's OCD. He knows he's like got all the stuff listed out. He's trying to program everything the whole day, and Boach is kind of old school, kind of holds a meeting now and then, does really kind of spends most of his time in his office, but they still both will pull you in and check your pulse, see how you're feeling, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'd say they're both still very much players managers, but yeah, very very different approaches, and both obviously successful.
Hmm. And how strange was that 2020 season? Because you came to the Giants in 2019, and the 2020 season was COVID year. And I feel like we don't discuss it enough. How there was literally nobody in the stands, and they had to play the crowd noise, as you're playing. So I mean, that entire season with the no fans, with all the COVID policies going on, I feel like it gets lost because we're kind of past it now. But that entire season was just kind of weird.
Yeah, it was different, and I remember thinking that crowd noise was going to be the dumbest thing of all time. But after playing two games silent in the exhibitions, they played the crowd noise, and you're like, okay, this is definitely better. And then actually, another thing I thought was going to be stupid was putting the fans' cardboard cutouts out there.
Yeah.
That actually kind of made it a little more homey. It's just like decorating your fireplace at Christmas. And then it also gave me targets to throw at because
That's
I was
right.
so pissed off they didn't put anybody down the lines, and I had to chase every ball that entire season. So I would take it out on the car. I'd pick a random cardboard cutout, see if I can knock its head off. And that gave me a little entertainment in between innings or in between pitches throughout that year.
Yeah, and I remember reading that, your wife was pregnant at the time, and we need an update. How is everything going with the little one? Have you learned anything about fatherhood?
Yeah, it's hard. It's even harder when you're playing baseball. No, it's been great. I've got two now actually. So
Oh,
had to
congratulations.
go through another pregnancy, also not easy. And they're doing great. They just came and visited me. It's Baseball's not an easy sport for family. It's not easy for them to be there all the time. It's not easy for you to play with them all there all the time. So everybody does it a little different. We've been doing the long visits, and it's been great. It's been every bit rewarding as it is difficult.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And um, I'll address the elephant in the room here. How often do you get asked about the cheesesteak commercial?
Not often, actually. Not outside of San Francisco. There, that it gets brought up quite a bit. That's one of those where, especially any ads, I just do them. I never watch them, and then people bring it up. They bring it up. But yeah, I heard they played it a ton that year, so I had to hear about it quite a bit for like a year and a half there. So
Yeah, no, it was a really touching commercial, and you were talking about your dad and everything, and how he was a fighter pilot in the Navy, and there's some emotion. And it was really touching. And then the next scene, it's just you chowing down on a cheesesteak, and it just takes
Yeah.
the wildest turn. I mean, I want to ask, because do you know at all who's doing the cheesesteak? Because they're still doing ads. Do you know who is doing the cheesesteak ad this year? Do you have any idea?
No, who is it?
It's Brandon Crawford. So
Oh,
Brandon Crawford,
perfect.
and I
His
think
turn.
he might have you beat. So I'm going to show you Crawford's 30-second cheesesteak video real quick, and you have to tell me which one you think is better. Okay, ready for this?
Okay. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Takes after this.
The Cheesesteak Shop. Authentic to the last bite.
Not hungry anymore either.
His might be
That
better.
one, I don't know what they have with commercials, but they seem to nail every one of them. What did you think about that?
That was actually pretty good. I mean, he's got a little more experience with the camera than I do, and you could tell he's already in pregame set up for BP with his headband and everything. That was pretty funny though.
Yeah, good. I had to show you that because I know the cheesesteak and you kind of get brought up simultaneously in San Francisco. A few more things real quick on the 2021 team. Franchise best 107 wins during the regular season. And, it essentially came out of nowhere. I know that there was a 500 season before, like a game under 500 in 2020. We're now a few years removed from that team. What are some of the favorite memories playing with that group of guys? Because it was a really spectacular year. It seemed like every day that, the team was winning. So what do you remember from that year and that group of guys?
I mean, that would probably be the best memory is that never in the big leagues had I experienced just rolling into places expecting to win 2 of 3 games, possibly sweeping almost every team in the league. And the coolest part about that was the beginning of the year when we were projected, I think, fourth or maybe even worse. And we were going over our goals in spring training, and Buster said, "Hey, there's only one goal, and there's only one realistic way to play baseball, and you gotta do it with the thought of winning the division." And people thought that was like crazy to say, even in our own locker room, when you're looking at the Dodgers and how stacked they were. But like he said, like, hey, that is the only way to play this game. It's not make the playoffs. It's you got to win the division. And it came down to literally the last day, and that last month, it was crazy. Both of us couldn't lose. It felt like, man, we're winning all these games, and we're gaining none on these guys, and we just stayed ahead of them like the entire time. And just like how resilient that group was, and it was really cool seeing what I think is probably the best generation of players, like most successful players from my era, watching them as we got down the stretch where I'm getting a little nervous. I've never even been in a playoff hunt. They're like way more relaxed. They're having so much fun, and like that's why they won those 3 World Series in 5 years there. It's a different breed of player when they're able to turn off all the noise, take out all the anxiety, and then they're just having fun with it, and they're playing all the way to the finish line.
Yeah, they got a lot of contributions from a lot of the veteran players, and a lot of the impact came from the kind of the platoon role. And that was a little bit of you. For example, you didn't face a ton of lefties that much. Are platoons something that players despise? Like, obviously, I want to hit lefties. I want to hit lefties. Does anybody actually say that as a left-handed hitter, or are they kind of understanding that maybe the platoon is the best situation for the team? Because I'm sure it's a kind of tough situation to be put into when you're due up in the 6th inning and a lefty comes out and you get pulled back.
Yeah, it's an adjustment for everybody. I think everybody would rather have all the at bats. There's when you're constructing a team and you're looking at like, hey, out of this spot, I want to get this kind of production. Me and Darren Ruff really bought into it in 2020, and I think they had us like if we were one player, we were like the second or third best left fielder in baseball. So you're looking at it and you go, okay, I understand that. I think where it got frustrating, at least in my sense, is when you're not going well. And I look at times when I got out of that slump, a lot of time it was left on left at bats, and those are kind of being taken away from you. So that's where it gets frustrating, but I don't blame them from a management point of view. It still makes more sense to put in the guy that's likely to still hit a home run against that guy. So I get it. I think there's some give and take. I don't think you can do it with your entire roster. You definitely have to have guys that can still see both kinds of guys. And by the time playoffs roll around, you would hope that towards the end you're able to maybe mix in a few of those at bats, both for your right-handed and left-handed side of the platoon. Because in the playoffs, it's not a guarantee you're going to get that matchup, and it's gonna probably take a 2-out, 2 RBI base hit on a left-on-left situation that might end up winning it for you. So, yeah, it's got its pros and its cons. I think it's just really a preference thing. I was with the Braves last year. They got a set of 9 guys that they are like, hey, these guys are really good. They're going to play every day. They're going to do this then it's old school, but man, they're so talented. You'd be doing all of them a disservice if you didn't let them see both sides. So yeah, it's really just, how the game's been evolving, and we'll see how it plays out over time.
Yeah, 9 guys, and like 8 of them went to the All-Star game this summer.
Oh, they're talent-wise, I've never seen anything like that group.
Yeah, no, definitely really cool. Alex, I appreciate you coming on. This was a blast. So media, is that in your future? Maybe after the playing days?
I don't know. We'll see. I don't tend to filter myself too often, so I don't know if that route will even allow me.
Hey, there's more opportunities for that content now than ever before.
I have been looking at that, and that is when I mentioned, like, I might go down this road. It would only be that way, where hey, you can't touch me. I'm doing it myself. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, definitely could be cool. But I appreciate you coming on. This was a blast, and best of luck to you in the season moving forward.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And everybody could follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RizzoCast. Go check us out. More stuff coming up soon. And everybody have a great day. A lot of trade deadline stuff coming soon too, as well. That's a big topic for sure. Alex, where's Shohei Ohtani going? Is he getting traded?
It'd be crazy. I mean, you can ask for an entire farm system for him. So I guess if you got that near the Angels and you guys keep ending up on the losing end of it, it'd still be nuts. That guy, there's nothing like him in the world.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I agree. All right, everybody. See you next time.